Welcome, Tushar. Thank you so much for being on. Why don't you start off by telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
First of all, thank you, Adam, for inviting me to your podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Tushar. I'm co-founder of Centrum Group, and we run various businesses from care homes to domiciliary care and property. And I think, today's topic is really about our first foray into the care home sector. And it sort of came as where, if I was to map out my career or my journey, was where I was probably at the pinnacle, where I felt I was at the pinnacle, where we'd built up an outstanding care service, and we thought, wow, we've got a great team, great service, great margins. This is fantastic. Very proud of everything we've achieved. And we'd also had built up a property portfolio, done a few developments, and we thought, well, at this point, it makes sense for us to now go into care homes because we've got the care experience and we've got a bit of property experience and we've got a bit of funds. Let's go into the care home sector. And, when we looked at everything, we thought, well, why not? Let's take on a failing care home 200 miles away in Devon. I'm based in Reading, so the care home was in South Devon. And well, yeah, we could do this. How difficult can it be? Well, it was a very humbling experience, and we've learned a lot of lessons. Lessons which I'm actually, on reflection, I'm very glad for, because it's allowed us to build a very strong care business. But at that moment in time, suffice to say, I probably aged about 10 years during that process.
Yeah, and so it was your first actual care home. You had the domiciliary care service up and running great, and were you outstanding at that time?
Yes, we were. So we had a CQC inspection. We were rated outstanding. And subsequently, when we took over the care homes, we were inspected by CQC again. The care homes were rated inadequate, and then they came back and re-inspected the domiciliary care services. But fortunately, they said, no, actually, you're still outstanding and you're actually doing a really good service there.
Wow, because I know to win a double outstanding is another level entirely versus outstanding in the first place. So congratulations. So okay. So why did you, curious to know the thinking about, okay, out of all the options, let's go for a turnaround on an inadequate failing home 200 miles away. Tell me about why you made that decision.
So I think whenever we do a business, we always, or go into a sector, we always look at, well, plan A is we want to run a care home, but what's our plan B and C? And I think this care home had been on the market for 3 years and nobody had bought it. So that should have actually highlighted to us there was something fundamentally wrong there. But fundamentally, the price that it was on, we got it 66% below market value. So from the price it was on the market for to what we acquired it for was significantly discounted. Effectively, we were paying £1 for the care service, and we were basically buying the property and the land value at that time. And we said, well, the plan B and C was if the care service was to fail or we didn't really enjoy it, we could close it down and we could build flats. But that was never our intention, because when we walked around the homes, we actually saw staff that were very dedicated to the residents. And when we started digging deeper, we realized actually it was just the previous owners had not really managed it as a care service. They saw it as a bit of a cash cow, and effectively it spiraled into various issues and led to it going into administration. But because it was still in administration for a long time, it lacked that leadership and that vision. So effectively, the staff were trying to hold the service together, but every day it was going on a downhill trajectory. And that therefore meant by the time we took it over, it was really at rock bottom, and we had a big job on our hands.
So what was the good price? So that was positive in your favor. And it was obviously you had an experience in the domiciliary care, but obviously as care home was new to you. I'm just curious to know, correct me if I'm right or wrong on that, but was in terms of like, okay, so we've now acquired this care home. Did you seek your plans? Did they emanate from you doing everything in-house? Or did you actually say, well, I'll tell you what, let's maybe just have some external advice on this before we get going? Tell me about that, the processes involved here.
So I think it was a very humbling experience. So when we got our care service to outstanding, we thought, well, look, we know how to do recruitment. We know how to do good care. We know how to build teams and culture. And we also know how to do good marketing. So we thought, well, these skills are clearly transferable to the
Mm,
care sector, but it's also seeing where you are on that journey. And obviously, to get to outstanding, it didn't happen overnight. There was 10
mm,
years of blood, sweat, and tears with a
mm,
lot of amazing moments along that way that got us to that outstanding. But when you've taken on a service where the staff are demoralized, it's been underinvested, it has a reputation of being a poor service,
mm,
you've got a big turnaround job. And it doesn't matter what skills you have, it is a very big challenge. And I think if on reflection, we tried to do it in-house. We tried to do the marketing, we tried to do the branding, the recruitment, the culture. But I think the care service is a bigger business than the domiciliary. So as I said, in the care service, I'm a recruiter, I'm providing care, and I'm managing a team. But with the care home, as long as with all of that, I've also got a cleaning service. I'm running a kitchen business. I'm running a maintenance business. I've got a buildings business, and I've got a lot more legal responsibilities
mm,
because I'm responsible for all the residents within the care home. So I think there was a lot of multiple hats that we hadn't foreseen, and we had to learn very quickly. And especially when you're being rated inadequate, time isn't on your side. And at that point, what would have been, in hindsight, what I would have done was probably reach out to somebody that had that external expertise and said, help us, tell us what the priorities are. We're committed, we want to work hard, tell us
mm.
what to do. So I
Right.
think for 2 years we struggled to keep the care homes afloat and moving. We managed it, but I think the pandemic sort of became a bit of a blessing in disguise for us.
I see. It's because it, tell me why was that?
So I think the problem when things are going wrong, it's like when you focus on something, you always see that. So it's like if you
Mm.
want to buy a BMW, you start seeing BMWs everywhere. So when things are negative, everybody just sees negative things in the home.
Yeah.
Oh, this needs painting, or this isn't right. And it doesn't
Mm.
matter all the good stuff we're trying to do, everybody focuses on the negative. So when the pandemic happened, it meant the door shut. And basically it was us and the residents. And we already had turned the homes around at this point. But actually, now it's about building the culture and creating the vision of what we wanted the care homes to be like.
Mm.
And actually, fundamentally allowed us to spend the time to recruit the right staff, um, fill in the vacancies, but also start putting the processes and the systems in place so that when we came out of the pandemic, we were in a much more stronger position.
Yeah, I see. So when you took over and the deal was done, you signed off and you took over ownership, what was the first thing that you did? And was in hindsight, would you have done that first thing now, or would you have done something differently as the first thing?
Yeah, so I think that's a very powerful question. So our intentions were always sincere. So we actually tried to replicate what we had at Bluebird Care. And so we recruited an
Mm.
operations manager. We had an operation manager that had very good business and commercial skills, but
Mm.
probably lacked expertise within the care sector.
Right.
So what we had was a really good way of running the finances, payroll,
Mm.
marketing, brand building. But what we didn't have somebody was that to go in and say, let's do the audits, let's get the care plans, let's start developing a culture of person-centered care, making sure all the checks and stuff were in place. And I think in hindsight, that would have been the first thing. I would have still recruited an operations manager, but maybe recruited somebody that had been a registered manager or somebody that had turned a failing care home around, because both myself and my co-director had the commercial and the business experience. So actually, that would have complemented us on that journey. So I think
Yeah.
that's probably the first thing. I guess that desire to actually deliver a quality service saw us walking around saying these homes have lovely gardens, but
Mm.
there was no furniture around. So I think in the first week we thought we'd surprise the care homes, and we had some delivery of really nice garden furniture. Said, oh, it's great. Let's get the residents sitting in the garden. And I remember the following week walking around, and the deputy manager of one of the homes turned around and goes, "It's lovely that you got us the garden furniture, but actually we need a medication trolley because the trolley has been broken for the last 2 years. And
Mm.
we're having to deliver medication in a very difficult way." So at that point, I began realizing there was a lot of things that we needed to listen to the staff and get that right. And I think that was one of the key lessons I would take from that. Listen to the staff and see what the priorities are before you go off and start putting your priorities in place.
I see. So would you admit like you probably maybe didn't listen to the staff there at the moment? You were more like going from your expertise with the domiciliary care service. Is that, have I
Yeah,
understood correctly?
that's correct. I mean, I think we were listening, but I think we also had a very vision and we were quite ambitious on our journey because we'd scaled
Yeah,
and built other businesses very
yeah,
quickly. So our view was let's get this turned around in 6 months and move on to the next care home.
yeah.
Um, but actually, the reality was that this was a failing care home that was underinvested and had a
Mm,
lot of demoralized staff and probably the
yeah,
wrong mix of residents in the homes. So we
right.
went through a lot of issues that we had to really turn it around. So I think listening to the staff and actually asking
Mm,
them, what would you like us to do in the first 90 days?
mm,
I'm not saying we're going to do that, but tell us what are your best ideas?
yeah.
What do we need to do to get these homes to a very stable and secure place? And listen to them and then prioritize it and work with them to implement it.
Yeah, I see. And tell me, did you keep the same manager, or was there a change in manager? How did you work around that?
So I think because this home was in administration, the bank or the service that was managing it put one person in to manage two services.
Hmm.
And that was very challenging. So when she came in, she was actually failing as well, but not because she was a bad manager, purely because she had too much to do. And when you're taking a very commercial approach, you're saying, well, I asked you to do X, Y, Z, and you haven't done X, Y, Z. I'm therefore going to ask you to leave. I think was probably the wrong thing to do.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, would I say she was the right manager for us? I don't know, but I doubt it based upon the initial conversations that we had.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that she was a bad manager.
Sure.
And I think that was another learning that we had is that when you're managing people that you're having to put trust in, you need to be very clear in your communication, have clear processes, clear KPIs in place. And then the operations manager we had recruited, she brought in somebody who was a friend who wanted to be a registered manager, but wasn't had no management experience. But we
Right,
thought
I see.
because of our experience previously where we've developed and grown our own stuff, we thought, yeah, that's a great idea. We can mold them into where we need it to be. But when you've got a failing service, you need somebody who's on the ball, has the experience, and can prioritize things. And that was probably another mistake we made.
Yeah,
But
interesting. Yeah, go on.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. But over time, you learn from this. And
Hmm.
I think with Bluebird Care in the first 2 years, we went through about 5 managers.
Yeah.
And with Centrum Care Homes, we went through 5 managers within the first 2 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then when we got the right managers that we clicked, they could see the vision, they could see the values, and that they really wanted to deliver, go on this journey with us. They're stuck with us.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to go through that because it's not to be afraid that it's not that they're a bad manager. It's just that what the business needs or what the care service needs,
Hmm.
what you need, there may be a specific skill set. And somebody will come in and stabilize the service, but they're not going to be somebody that will take it to the next level. And I think that's something that you have as a provider have to be open to and
Yeah.
understand.
That's great. Thank you for sharing this so candidly. So you went through some, let's say, not easy times when you first took over, but obviously things later got into the swing. So tell me about how, when you felt you really kind of started to move things forward, when did it all start to click, and move in the right direction for you?
So I think there was two parts where I really started seeing it click. One was as we came out of the pandemic, especially the
Hmm.
first pandemic, because by that time, those 4 or 5 months really allowed the team to bond. We supported them, but also the systems and investment we had put into the place prior to the pandemic, it allowed people to become embedded into our organization. So whether it was um, care planning software, social media tools, electronic rotors, electronic auditing, it
Hmm.
allowed people to actually carry out learning without somebody saying, well, why is this not there? Why is not external people coming in and say, I need this, I need that. So that was a real turning point for us. And as we came out of the pandemic, our occupancy went up where other care homes were struggling. And that then allowed us to do a refurbishment and really start moving the care home and giving it an identity of what it is to be a Centrum Care Home. And I think that was really important. So we had the technology, we had fantastic people, we had processes in place, and we started a program of investing in the care homes. And I think everybody started feeling we're moving in the right direction. and that built momentum.
I see. And by this time, had you found the right manager?
Yes, so I think we
Mm.
had a very good manager. She was with us from day one, but she was a
Mm.
deputy at that time.
Okay.
And then when the pandemic happened, we made her the registered manager for the overall services and put
Right.
two home managers in place. And she was like a sponge.
Mm.
So she worked really hard. She wanted to really develop and learn about the care service, what good care looks like. And she wasn't afraid to make a mistake and learn from that mistake.
Mm.
And we actually really worked really well and complemented each other. So,
Mm.
I've been very creative with the ideas, but she was very detailed and getting things embedded into the organization. So the team
Mm.
worked really well, and we actually started not just the manager, but we also built a sub team of good home managers, good head of housekeeping, good head of maintenance, head of kitchen. And so we started empowering the teams and the staff to actually start
Mm.
taking responsibility. So it didn't all just fall on the manager.
I see. Okay, that sounds great. And were you personally very involved in this, everything you've been talking about?
Yeah, we were very involved. I think we were very blessed that we built a very strong management team at Bluebird Care and in
Mm.
our other businesses. So when we were there, we were able to support the management team and the staff at the care
Mm.
homes. Because I think as a director, it's easy for me to set KPIs, to set processes and have Zoom meetings. But actually, to build a culture, you need to roll up your sleeves and show this is what a Centrum
Mm.
Care Home looks like. This is the
Mm.
vision we need to be in. And one of the things that both me and my co-director Mel really enjoyed doing was really having simple rules like just learning the first name of all our staff, learning what their family situation was or what their interests were. So when we were walking around the camp, not just the staff, but also the residents,
Mm.
people could see that we would actually talk to staff and
Mm.
residents with respect. So being 200 miles, they didn't see us as some director that just came in now and then. They saw us as part of the home and as part of its success. And actually the management team and we all spoke in alignment. And I think that was very important. So when people did well, we all shared the news and congratulated the teams accordingly. But when we had to give difficult messages, we were all aligned in those difficult messages as well.
Mm.
And I think that made a massive difference to the organization.
Yeah, I see. And when did the CQC rating start to change in a positive direction?
So I think it had already changed prior to the pandemic. So just before the first lockdown, it had already got to good. But I think what we had done was got to good, not because it was embedded in the organization. It was
Mm.
because some really good people that really drove it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't actually within the DNA of the organization.
Mm.
And I think during the pandemic, we created that natural DNA where everybody was doing what they should be
Mm.
doing. So I think that was a real positive for us.
Mm.
And then we started developing what I would call our own care operating system,
Right.
where people see this is the way a Centrum Care Home works.
I see. Fabulous. Well, that sounds great. So the turnaround happens. It achieved it. Congratulations. And then so that was your first home, right? So then four other homes came on the back of that. So
Yeah.
I've got that correct, haven't I? Made that presumption. One, then four equals five.
Yeah, well, it was actually we brought two care homes that were in
Oh,
administration, one go
oh,
at
I
the beginning.
see. All
Yeah, and
right.
then we brought a group of three homes last year.
I
So
see.
yeah, but again, that was a challenge in itself because the
Yeah.
first two homes were 44 beds, and
Mm-hmm.
the three homes that we brought last year were 101 beds. So
Oh,
over
okay.
trebled the business overnight,
Yeah.
which is positive, but it
Yeah.
also has its challenges as well.
Another set of challenges. Yeah, fabulous. And I'm curious now. So you had the deputy who became your manager. Did she? How long did she stay for? Is she still with you? How did that work out?
She stayed with us for 5 years.
Yeah, that's good.
Then I think the pandemic unfortunately had an impact,
Yeah.
and she was very young as well. So I think
Mm,
she left our organization, but
yeah.
we're still in touch. And I think wherever she goes, she will be a success because she has the right
Mm,
values and the right attitude.
yeah.
And we're grateful for the opportunity of having somebody developing somebody like that. And I
Mm,
think once we miss that skill set, we've also learned from that. And actually, it's great to start seeing the next generation of leaders coming through our organization, which is really
yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So, and you've kind of touched on this, to be honest, but let me just put it to you again. If there's anything else that you've gone through, you've learned, and like if you had to do, if you were doing this over again, what you would do differently. I do repeat, you have mentioned, but just want to check there's nothing else that comes to mind in terms of like how you would have done things differently or things that you've learned from that experience that you've kind of kept with you since.
So I think we've already talked about maybe being a bit
Mm,
bringing some external
mm,
expertise, but I think everything is a journey.
mm,
And whilst it may be difficult right now and it feels that you're banging your head against a brick wall and not making progress, if you stay consistent, stay true to the values, stay true to the vision, eventually you'll break through and get to that next level.
mm,
And I think that's really important. Having what I would call a very stoic approach to things, not taking things personally, because, like, for example, the operations manager that left us, started as a deputy, went on to become an operations manager for us.
mm,
You build a business around that, and it can have an emotional and a financial impact to you.
mm,
But actually, very grateful for the 5 years that she was with us because it
mm,
allowed us to get to where we are. And actually,
mm,
what we've realized is actually it's made us more stronger as a business because we're not
mm,
relying on one person. We're building a team that
mm,
runs our businesses. And I
mm,
think that's important. So looking at things and say, what's the lesson? What's the universe teaching me today that I need to be a better
mm,
leader? How can I become a better leader? How can I become a better care operator? And effectively, how can I become a better human being?
mm, mm. Fabulous, fabulous, great. Well, there's been a lot here for us all to get some tips and advice and learnings from. So thank you. Tushar, is there anything that you've not mentioned that you perhaps feel would be valuable?
So I think anyone starting a care business, the first one or two is always a challenge because you're
Mm,
very sort of in the business and you know
mm,
everything. As you grow your business, don't think about how many care homes you want to do.
mm,
Change the philosophy to say you can build your team that can build your business.
mm,
Because I meet many people that are just frazzled and just struggling with
mm,
their 5, 6, 7 care homes and saying, why am I doing this? But that's because they haven't built a team
mm,
and that can really take the business forward for them and allow the person that owns and runs the business to actually enjoy the business and share the vision
mm,
and develop the
mm.
culture. So I think
Yeah.
that's something that I would say to everyone that as
Mm,
you grow your business, whether it's one care home or 5 care
mm,
homes or any
mm,
more,
mm,
build your team and then build your business. Let
mm,
them build your business for you.
Great, Tusha. Thank you so much. Just finally, if anyone wants to pick your brains on anything that you've mentioned up to now, where might they be able to find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Tushar Shah at Centrum Care Homes. So if you just that would probably be the best way of contacting me, is
Mm,
via LinkedIn. Yeah.
Perfect. Tusha, thank you so much for being on the Care CEO Success Stories podcast.
Thank you.